The craziest prison escapes ever. Number 5. The Great Balloon Getaway. Picture this. You're stuck in prison. The walls are high, the guards are watching, and your life is basically one endless episode of Orange is the New Black, but without the quirky friendships. Now, most people would probably try to tunnel out, or maybe hide in a laundry cart. But no 3 inmates in France decided, you know what, screw the ground, let's go up. And yes, they actually busted out using a hot air balloon. Here's how it went down. Back in 1986, a group of clever prisoners realized the sky doesn't have barbed wire. So, they arranged for some outside helpers to show up with a literal hot air balloon, like they were auditioning for Cirque du Soleil. The balloon floated gracefully into prison grounds, scooped them up, and poof, they were gone. Guards, by the way, just stood there probably asking themselves, wait, are we supposed to have an anti-balloon division? From a psychology perspective, this is genius-level creativity. There's a concept in behavioral science called functional fixedness. It's when your brain only sees objects for their typical uses, like a balloon is for birthday parties, not prison breaks. But these guys hacked their brains out of that mental cage, thinking, why not use this oversized floating bag of fire to escape? It's like MacGyver on steroids. Of course, it's not like you can just land a hot air balloon in downtown Paris without raising eyebrows. Eventually, the fugitives were tracked down, but the fact that they even pulled this off in the first place? Chef's kiss. It proves that when the human brain is desperate enough, it can turn a children's cartoon plot into a real-life jailbreak. Basically, the only thing missing from this escape was someone yelling, "To infinity and beyond." Number 4. The Disappearing Act. Imagine being a guard at Alcatraz, the Rock, the so-called escape-proof prison in the middle of shark-infested San Francisco Bay. Now, imagine doing your morning rounds and finding 3 empty beds where 3 very real prisoners should be. Cue panic, cue dramatic music, cue your supervisor's "we're so fired" face. This is the infamous 1962 Escape by Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, which later inspired Escape from Alcatraz. These guys didn't just escape. They Houdini'd their way out of a place designed to be impossible. The genius? Paper mache. They literally crafted fake heads out of soap, toilet paper, and paint, complete with hair stolen from the barbershop. So when guards peeked in, it looked like everyone was still tucked in for their sad little prison nap. While their bodies snoozed away, the real men crawled through holes they dug behind the vents, climbed up pipes, and disappeared into the night on a homemade raft made of raincoats. Yes, raincoats. Somewhere, an outdoorsman is still jealous. Psychologically, this hits on something fascinating: persistence and delayed gratification. Most of us can't wait more than 30 seconds for a YouTube ad to end. These men spent over a year secretly chipping away at concrete with spoons, hiding the dust, and calmly waiting for the right moment. That level of patience is less criminal mastermind and more Buddhist monk with a side hustle. Now, did they survive the icy bay crossing? Officially, the FBI says, probably not. But fun fact, in 2013, the FBI got a letter, allegedly from one of the escapees, saying, "I made it. I'm alive. Please help me." Was it real? Who knows? But if it was, then congratulations. These guys basically won the world's hardest game of hide and seek. So yeah, sometimes the greatest magic trick isn't pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It's pulling yourself out of Alcatraz. Number 3. The Suitcase Stowaway. You know how airports have those giant signs that say, "Don't leave your luggage unattended"? Yeah, that rule exists partly because of one man who decided to treat a suitcase like an Uber. In 2009, a prisoner in Mexico managed to escape jail by squeezing himself into his girlfriend's oversized luggage bag. Yep, forget exercise, forget prison food. The real motivation for getting slim is apparently fit inside Samsonite. Here's the scene. Guards were checking people leaving the prison after visiting hours. Most had purses, tote bags, maybe a plastic sack full of sad cafeteria snacks. But one woman, she had a massive, suspiciously lumpy rolling suitcase. The guards opened it up, probably expecting contraband snacks or maybe a very enthusiastic chihuahua. Instead, surprise! A full-grown man, folded up like laundry. The psychology of this is hilarious. We talk about survival instincts, as if it's some primal, heroic force. But here, survival instinct meant asking, how much core strength do I need to stay curled up like a human pretzel for hours? There's also the psychology of the guards. This works because people have inattentional blindness. Basically, your brain ignores things it doesn't expect. A person in a bag? Too ridiculous to notice. Until it wasn't. Of course, the suitcase scheme didn't last long. The man was caught again just outside the prison, probably because it's hard to run fast after being packed like carry-on luggage. Still, for a brief moment, he was living proof that you don't need a helicopter or explosives. Sometimes, you just need a girlfriend and a really big bag. So next time you're struggling to close your overstuffed suitcase before a trip, just remember, at least you're not trying to smuggle a whole human being in there. Number 2. The helicopter taxi service. Forget Uber Black. Forget limos. If you're in prison and you want to escape in style, you call a helicopter. This isn't theory, it's practically a trend in French prisons. Between the 1,980 seconds and 2,010 seconds, at least 5 separate helicopter escapes were pulled off in France. Apparently, French criminals looked at air travel and thought, this is my exit strategy. Take the case of Pascal Payet, the ultimate helicopter escape artist. This guy escaped from prison not once, not twice, but 3 times using helicopters. His crew would hijack a chopper, fly over the prison yard, lower a rope, and whisk him away, while the guards stood there probably wondering if their job description ever mentioned anti-air defense. Now, from a psychological perspective, this is where charisma and influence come into play. Think about it. You have to convince a team of people to risk everything, hijack a helicopter, and coordinate an actual military-style airlift, all to get you out. That's not just crime, that's persuasion. We're talking cult leader levels of, I've got a plan, trust me. It also speaks to the human brain's obsession with spectacle. Most people would be too scared to try something so bold because of the high risk. But studies show that, when stakes are life or death, your brain can sometimes flip into all or nothing mode, making the impossible feel like the only option. Pascal Payet basically turned his prison breaks into blockbuster movie scenes. And sure, he was eventually caught again, multiple times. But let's be real. If you escape prison 3 times by helicopter, at that point you're less a criminal and more a stunt coordinator for Fast and Furious Prison Edition. Number 1. The Great Texas Disappearing Act. Let's talk about the Texas 7. Sounds like a country music band, right? Nope. It was actually a group of prisoners who pulled off one of the most jaw-dropping escapes in U.S. history. In December 2000, 7 inmates busted out of the Connolly Unit, a maximum security prison in Texas, and for a short time, they basically became the Beatles of escape artistry. Here's how they did it. First, they tricked civilian maintenance workers into thinking they were prison trustee workers, then tied them up. Next, they overpowered guards, stole uniforms, and raided the prison armory like kids at a candy store, except instead of Snickers bars, they were walking out with guns. They then used the disguises and stolen ID badges to stroll right out the front door. Casual. Like leaving a Walmart. Psychologically, this hits on group dynamics. In social psychology, there's something called group polarization. When people in a group push each other toward riskier and riskier decisions. Alone, one prisoner might think, maybe I'll just wait out my sentence. But get 7 of them hyping each other up, and suddenly it's Ocean's 11 meets Home Depot. Everyone's ego, adrenaline, and problem-solving skills amplify each other until you've got a perfect storm of criminal teamwork. For weeks, the Texas Seven went on the run, committing robberies and even appearing on America's Most Wanted. The manhunt was massive, with the FBI, Texas Rangers, and basically every cop within 5 zip codes after them. Eventually, 6 were recaptured and 1 committed suicide. The saga ended tragically, but for a while, they were living proof that teamwork makes the dream work, even if the dream is completely illegal. The craziest part? This wasn't some high-tech hack or James Bond gadgetry. It was just old-fashioned manipulation, confidence, and the ability to look like you belong somewhere you absolutely don't. Which, honestly, is the same psychology people use to sneak into music festivals. So, lesson learned. If you ever doubt the power of a motivated group project, just remember, these guys turned escape-proof into oops-proof. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.